Chapter 7 Animals. I'm Diya Maheshwari and I'll be walking you through this lesson. Animals by Walt Whitman. I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long. They do not sweat and whine about their condition. They do not lie awake in the dark and weep for their sins. They do not make me sick, discussing their duty to God. Not one is dissatisfied, not one is demented with the mania of owning things. Not one kneels to another, nor to his kind that lived thousands of years ago. Not one is respectable or unhappy over the whole earth. So they show their relations to me and I accept them. They bring me tokens of myself. They evince them plainly in their possession. I wonder where they get those tokens. Did I pass that way huge times ago and negligently drop them? About the poet. Walt Whitman was an American poet, essayist, and journalist. He was born on the 31st of May, 1819 in New York. Amongst his most famous works are Leaves of Grass and Songs of Myself. The poem Animals was written and published in Leaves of Grass. It is one of his famously regarded works, and most people know him for Leaves of Grass, which is definitely a great read. This poem, Animals itself, was written in free verse, and Walt Whitman passed away on the 26th of March, 1892. About the poem. Walt Whitman compares man to animals in the poem. As seen in the first line, he says that he would like to be an animal and that he'd like to live amongst animals. He says that man lacks values that animals have. That can be seen in the fourth line. He says that they do not sweat and whine about their condition. Animals tend to be content with what they have, and even if they are not content, they try to do something about it instead of just sitting in one place and crying about it. He says that unlike man, animals aren't selfish and insatiable, so he'd rather live amongst animals than humans. Evidently, not one is dissatisfied, not one is demented. Here he is showing that animals, unlike humans, are not dissatisfied, they're not insatiable, they're happy with what they get, and they do not worry over material possessions, and they do not care about owning things. To them, it's just about survival and also about contentment. Instead of being dissatisfied, they try to be content with everything they have. Animals care for us whilst humans only care for themselves. Again, as seen, not one is respectable or unhappy over the whole earth. So animals are happy with what they have and they do not expect everybody on the entire earth to respect them, unlike humans who chase after fame and they who try to bring to themselves all the riches and the goods of the world. In this poem, the poet Whitman compares man to animals. He finds that man lacks many virtues that animals have. The poet desires to live among the animals because they are calm and self-confident. They are well contented. They do not sweat and complain about their condition like human beings. They do not possess the mania of possessing things. No animals have to bow to another of their kind. Evidently, animals do not have the need for material goods and they do not have the needs to show them off, and neither do they feel entitled to the respect of other animals of their own kind like humans do. They are all equal and remain satisfied. The poet has a deep desire to learn from animals. They do not have any kind of falsehood. The poet is much surprised at their simplicity. He talks about how the animals teach him to be a better person using tokens of his human life. He wants to learn from the tokens, though he had dropped them carelessly. Moving on to page 84, where the question and answers are. Under thinking about the poem, first question. Notice the use of the word turn in the first line. I think I could turn and live with animals. What is the poet turning from? In the first line, I think I could turn and live with animals. The poet uses the word turn to express his desire to turn into an animal. He also says that he is turning away from living with other humans as he finds them complicated and false. He says he would rather live with animals that are self contained and non complaining than live with human beings. Question 2. Mention three things that humans do and animals don't. So the poet has drawn three comparisons between humans and animals. Humans worry and complain about their condition and are never satisfied with what they have. Humans tend to sweat and work to make a living and later whine and sulk about how much work they have when all they want to do is survive. Animals, on the other hand, do not whine about their condition, and that is something the poet really admires about them. Humans tend to think too much about their wrongdoing by lying awake and weeping in the dark. Humans lie awake at night and cry for the wrongs they have done. Animals do not weep for anything they do and they sleep peacefully. Again, something that the poet wants to have is the peace and quiet and calm that the animals tend to have for themselves. Humans also keep telling each other about their duties and obligations to God, and they also make each other sick by discussing their duties to God. However, animals do not have any God and they live and survive without any prayers or fasts, and that's really admirable about them. Question 3. Do humans kneel to other humans who lived thousands of years ago? Discuss. Yes, humans kneel and worship to other humans who lived thousands of years ago. Many people worship their ancestors who lived all that time ago. They pray to them, observe fasts for them, and hold religious services and ceremonies in their honor. And they pray by kneeling in front of their portraits, and humans also worship other humans who preached years ago. Some believe that they are reincarnations of God. They kneel before them and worship them. They also follow their teachings and their way of life. They hold religious sermons and ceremonies in their memory. Question 4. What are the tokens that the poet says he may have dropped long ago, and which the animals have kept for them? Discuss. The textbook also gives us a hint. The hint is that Whitman belongs to the romantic tradition that includes Rousseau and Wordsworth, which holds that civilization has made humans false to their own true nature. What could be the basic aspects of our nature as living beings that humans choose to ignore or deny? So the tokens that the poet says that have been dropped are virtues that the human race once had, that made it superior to the other species. Animals, the animals have kept them for him, and they are his true nature as a human. Through the ages, materialism has conquered humanity and end has become more important than means, which means that people look to completing a task and reaching a final goal regardless of what it takes to get them there. They will beg, borrow, steal to get what they want. Mankind seems to have lost humility, mutual respect, and contentment in a race to possess everything that it lay its hand on, which means that humans just want everything that they can possibly have, regardless of what it requires to get there, regardless of how many people or how many other animals it may hurt. They don't care. If they want something, they want it now. Animals, on the other hand, display commendable characteristics by respecting each other's territory and space and being content when their basic needs have been fulfilled. And the poet really likes this about them and says that humans used to be like that as well at one point. In a way, they seem to have picked up the virtues abandoned by humans and come across and as more civilized than humans. As seen, it makes more sense, and it looks like the animals have learned from the humans in the past, and they still hold true to those virtues. However, we have lost our path and we have become a worse version of ourselves. Thank you. That's all for today's lesson, and I will be helping you out with more poems and more lessons after this.